Hi, I'm Brenda, and welcome back to the channel. Today's letter comes from a woman who discovered a family secret so dark, it shattered everything she thought she knew about her life. This story will stay with you long after it's over. Before we begin, please take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. I receive letters every week, stories of betrayal, family drama, secrets, and survival. Your comments help me decide which stories to share next. The woman behind today's story, we'll call her Emily, is 36 years old. She grew up in a quiet town in Vermont, the oldest of 3 siblings. To outsiders, her family looked perfect. A strong father, a loving mother, and a close-knit home. But 2 months ago, Emily's mother passed away unexpectedly. She'd been battling a long illness, and Emily had returned home to help with the arrangements. Part of that meant cleaning out the house room by room, memory by memory. One rainy afternoon, Emily climbed into the attic for the first time in years. It was dusty, cramped, filled with boxes of old holiday decorations and forgotten toys. But tucked away in the farthest corner was a small locked wooden box. It was strange because Emily had never seen it before. The box was old, carved, with symbols she didn't recognize and heavy in her hands. She tried the key ring from her mother's desk, but none fit. She could have left it, but she didn't. Instead, she brought it downstairs, wiped off the dust, and set it on the kitchen table. Something about it felt important. She couldn't explain why, but she knew she had to open it. Whatever was inside was never meant to be found easily. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Emily took a screwdriver and pried the box open. The wood splintered, the lock broke, and when the lid creaked open, she found a collection of letters, photographs, and documents that made her blood run cold. Emily spread the contents across the kitchen table, her hands trembling. The first thing she noticed was a stack of letters tied together with a faded ribbon. They weren't addressed to her mother, but to someone named Claire. That wasn't her mother's name. She untied the ribbon and began reading. The letters were old, some dated more than 30 years ago. They were love letters, full of passion and secrecy. The man writing them referred to himself only as R, and in every letter, he begged Claire to keep the truth hidden. The next thing she found was a series of photographs. In one of them, her mother, young, smiling, stood beside a man Emily didn't recognize. He had dark hair, sharp features, and an arm draped protectively around her shoulders. The date on the back was the same year Emily was born. Her heart raced as she dug deeper into the box. There were documents too, birth certificates, hospital forms, and even a marriage license. That was when she saw it, her own birth certificate, but not the one she had grown up seeing. This one had a different father's name. Emily stared at it for what felt like hours. Her entire life, she had believed her father was Thomas, the man who raised her, who tucked her in at night, who disciplined her when she misbehaved. But the name on the certificate wasn't Thomas. It was Robert Hayes. Her mind spun. Who was Robert Hayes? Was he the man in the photographs? Why had her mother kept this from her? And what did it mean for the rest of her family? She felt dizzy, like the walls were closing in, but the letters weren't finished. One, dated just a week before Emily was born, said something chilling. If Thomas ever finds out the truth, it won't end well for either of us or for the baby. Promise me, Claire, you'll never tell. Emily dropped the letter. For the first time in her life, she questioned everything about the man she'd called her father. Emily barely slept that night. The image of her mother smiling next to the man in the photograph was burned into her mind. She had 1,000 questions and nowhere to put them. But by morning, she knew she had to talk to someone at breakfast. She brought it up with her younger brother, Nathan. Do you remember Mom ever mentioning someone named Robert Hayes? She asked casually. Nathan froze, his spoon halfway to his mouth. "No," he said quickly. Too quickly, she tried again with her sister, Hannah, later that day. Hannah shook her head, but Emily caught the flicker in her eyes, that tiny pause before she spoke. "Why are you asking about him?" Hannah whispered. "Where did you hear that name?" Emily didn't answer. She didn't want to reveal the box yet. Not until she was sure she could trust someone. But now she was certain of one thing. Her siblings knew something. And whatever it was, they were terrified to talk about it. That night, Emily considered asking her father directly. But when she saw him sitting in his chair, staring blankly at the television, she hesitated. Thomas had aged quickly after her mother's death. His once commanding presence was frail now, but his eyes were sharp. "Dad," she started, voice trembling. "Did Mom ever—" He cut her off instantly. "No," he said, "not. Even looking at her. Whatever you think you found, put it away. Leave it alone." Emily's blood ran cold. He knew. Somehow, he knew exactly what she was referring to. And he wanted her to stop digging. But how could she? The letters she'd read made it clear. If Thomas ever discovered the truth, someone could die. Emily retreated to her room, clutching the box to her chest. She felt like a child again, scared and small. But she also felt something else, determination. Her mother had kept the secret for decades. Emily would be the one to uncover it, no matter the cost. Emily spent the next day digging through the rest of her mother's belongings. She searched closets, drawers, even the basement. She was looking for anything that could tell her more about Robert Hayes and why her mother had been so afraid. In an old sewing kit, she found a small notebook wrapped in tissue paper. Inside were scattered entries, written in her mother's familiar handwriting. Most were mundane, shopping lists, appointments. But a page dated just 2 weeks before her death caught Emily's eye. It read, "I think Thomas knows. He's been watching me differently. I can't tell if it's paranoia or real, but I'm scared. If anything happens to me, someone needs to find the box. Emily will know what to do." Emily's heart pounded. Her mother had feared for her life. She'd left the box for Emily, but why hadn't she said anything out loud? Why had she left it hidden instead of warning her directly? She read the page again, and her mother's words echoed in her mind. "If anything happens to me..." Emily felt her throat tighten. Her mother's illness had been long and draining, but now she wondered, had it really been natural? The thought made her stomach twist. Could her father have known about the affair all along? Could he have? No, it was unthinkable. But the look in his eyes when she'd brought it up still haunted her. He hadn't been sad. He'd been angry. That night, Emily searched online for Robert Hayes. The name was common, but after hours of digging, she found a newspaper article from 1988 about a man by that name reported missing. He had vanished without a trace. The photo attached matched the man from the letters. Emily stared at the screen, chills crawling up her spine. Her biological father had disappeared the same year she was born. Her mother had left behind cryptic warnings. And Thomas, her father, on paper, was telling her to stop asking questions. Suddenly, the old house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a trap. Emily couldn't stop thinking about the article. She printed it out and slipped it into the box with the letters, then locked her bedroom door. Her father had gone to bed early, but she still felt like he could appear at any moment, watching her every move. The next morning, she drove to the local library. The building was nearly empty, the smell of old paper heavy in the air. She spent hours scrolling through microfilm archives, searching for anything related to Robert Hayes' disappearance. There were more articles than she expected. Witness statements, search efforts, speculation. One name kept popping up, Thomas Whitman. Her father had been questioned as a person of interest, but was never charged. The reason? No body was ever found. Emily's hands shook as she read. According to the records, Thomas had been dating her mother at the time. Witnesses claimed he was volatile and jealous, especially after learning Claire, her mother, was pregnant. The timeline matched perfectly. She photocopied everything and left quickly, glancing over her shoulder the entire way out. Every instinct told her not to return home, but she needed to. The box and the notebook were still there, and she couldn't leave them behind. When she got back, Thomas was waiting in the kitchen. He didn't greet her. He just stared, his jaw tight. "You've been busy," he said. Emily felt her blood run cold. How much did he know? "I was just clearing things out," she managed to reply. But his eyes narrowed, reading every flicker of fear in her face. "Your mother liked to keep secrets," he said quietly. "Sometimes it's better to let the past stay buried." Emily forced a nod, but inside she was screaming. She needed to get the box and leave, tonight, because if her mother's warnings were right, Thomas wasn't just hiding a secret he might have killed to protect it. Emily waited until Thomas went to bed before making her move. She kept the lights off, her heart thundering in her chest as she slipped the documents into her bag. Every creak in the old house made her freeze. She reached her bedroom, grabbed the box, and tiptoed down the stairs. But halfway down, a voice cut through the darkness. "Where are you going, Emily?" Thomas was standing at the bottom of the stairs, holding a glass of whiskey, his expression unreadable. I just needed some air," she stammered, clutching the box tighter. Thomas tilted his head. "With that?" he asked, gesturing too. The bag slung over her shoulder. "What's in there that's so important?" Emily's mind raced. She couldn't tell him the truth. "Just Mom's things," she lied. "I wanted to look through them alone." Thomas stepped closer, the floorboards groaning under his weight. His eyes locked onto hers like he could see straight through the lie. "You're just like her," he muttered, "always digging, always needing answers, and you saw where that got her." Emily's breath caught in her throat. Was he admitting something, or just trying to scare her? "I'm not Mom," Emily whispered, backing up slowly. Thomas smirked. "No, you're more stubborn. That's going to be a problem." He took another step forward, blocking her path to the door. Emily's pulse pounded in her ears. She had one chance. She tightened her grip on the box and made a split-second decision. She bolted past him, shoving his shoulder hard enough to knock the glass from his hand. It shattered on the floor as she sprinted for the door. She didn't look back. She just ran into the cold night, clutching the box like her life depended on it, because she was starting to believe it truly did. Emily drove without a plan, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. Every pair of headlights behind her felt like Thomas. She didn't know where to go, who to trust. All she knew was she couldn't go back home, not now, not ever. She pulled into a 24-hour diner on the edge of town, the kind of place where no one asked questions. She sat in a booth at the back, the box beside her, and tried to steady her breathing. Her hands were still shaking as she took out the documents. Among the letters was one she hadn't read before, dated just days before Robert Hayes disappeared. It said, "If Thomas finds me, it's over. I'm leaving tonight. Claire, promise me you'll protect the baby, even if I don't make it." Emily felt a lump rise in her throat. She didn't just want answers anymore, she needed justice. She grabbed her phone and searched for the detective who had led Robert Hayes' case decades ago. To her surprise, he was still alive, retired now, living 2 towns over. She called the number she found online, praying he'd answer. After 3 rings, a gravelly voice picked up. "Who is this?" Emily introduced herself and explained the situation in a rush. There was silence on the other end before he said, "Meet me in the morning, and don't go back to that house." Emily agreed, but when she hung up, Dread settled in her stomach. Morning felt like forever away. She ordered coffee she didn't want just to stay awake, glancing at the door every few seconds, terrified Thomas might walk through it. At one point, she thought she saw his truck pass by the window. Her breath caught, but it didn't stop. She knew Thomas wouldn't let this go. If he suspected she had evidence linking him to Robert Hayes' disappearance, he would come for her. She looked at the box again and realized what her mother had meant in that notebook. Emily will know what to do. For the first time, Emily felt the weight of that responsibility. She had to finish what her mother started, no matter the cost. At sunrise, Emily drove to the address the retired detective had given her. It was a small house at the edge of town, with peeling paint and an overgrown yard. She parked a block away, scanning the street to make sure she wasn't being followed. Detective Frank Miller was waiting on the porch. He was in his 70s now, but his presence was still sharp, commanding. "You look just like your mother," he said as she approached. Emily's breath hitched. He knew exactly who she was, inside. Over a pot of strong coffee, Emily laid out the letters, the photographs, the birth certificate. Frank read them slowly, his jaw tightening with each piece of evidence. "I always knew Thomas was involved," he finally said, "but I could never prove it." He told Emily what he'd never been able to put in an official report. Witnesses had seen Thomas arguing violently with Robert Hayes the night he disappeared. Neighbors reported hearing shouting, a car door slam, and then nothing. Robert was gone. Emily's hands trembled as she asked the question she dreaded. "Do you think my father killed him?" Frank didn't hesitate. "I think Thomas knew. Robert was the baby's father, and I think he made sure Robert never came back." Frank leaned closer. "If Thomas knows you've uncovered this, you're in danger. You need to take this evidence straight to the police. And Emily..." He paused. "Don't let him talk you out of it. He's good at that. Your mother was terrified of him for a reason." Emily nodded, but fear gnawed at her. She remembered the way Thomas had looked at her last night, the subtle threat in his voice. She knew Frank was right, but going to the police meant turning her entire family upside down. Frank placed a comforting hand on hers. "Your mother wanted you to find this box for a reason. If we don't act now, the truth dies with you. Are you ready for that?" Emily took a deep breath, clutching the letters. "No," she whispered. A nod. Emily left Frank's house with her heart pounding. The letters, photographs, and documents were tucked safely in her bag. She had a clear plan now. Go straight to the police station in the next town, hand everything over, and finally end this nightmare. She kept checking the rearview mirror as she drove, terrified of seeing Thomas's truck behind her. Every car that got too close made her palms sweat. She knew he'd figure out where she was headed eventually. She just had to get there first. Halfway to the station, her phone buzzed. It was Nathan. She almost didn't answer, but something told her she had to. "Emily, you need to stop," he said, his voice shaking. "Dad knows. He's furious. He's coming for you. Please, just come home before this gets worse." Emily's stomach dropped. Thomas knew. He was coming. "I'm not coming home," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "This ends today, Nathan. Tell Hannah to stay somewhere safe." She hung up before he could protest 2 minutes later. As she turned onto the main road leading to the station, she saw Thomas's truck in the distance, barreling toward her from the opposite direction. Her pulse spiked. He had found her. She floored the gas pedal, her car rattling as it picked up speed. Thomas swerved into her lane, flashing his headlights. For a terrifying second, she thought he was going to ram her off the road. At the last moment, she veered sharply onto a side street. The tires screeched as she turned, barely keeping control of the car. She didn't know where she was going, only that she needed to lose him. But Thomas was relentless. In the mirror, his truck loomed. Closer, eating up the distance, Emily's mind raced. She was so close to the police station, but if he caught her before she got there, the evidence and her life might be gone forever. She tightened her grip on the wheel and whispered to herself, I can't let him win. Not this time. Emily's car skidded onto a deserted rural road, gravel flying beneath the tires. She gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles ached. Thomas's truck was still behind her, its headlights glaring like twin predators in the rear view. She knew she couldn't outrun him forever. Her car was smaller, weaker, and she was running out of road. Up ahead was an abandoned service station she remembered from childhood. She made a split-second decision and swerved into the cracked driveway. She jumped out with the box in her arms and ran toward the back of the building, hoping to find another way out. But Thomas was faster. He slammed the truck door and followed, his heavy footsteps echoing like thunder. Emily, stop. His voice boomed. You're making a mistake. Put the box down and we can talk about this. Emily turned, clutching it tighter. Talk about what, Dad? About how you killed Robert Hayes. About how you've lied to me my entire life? Thomas's jaw tightened. I did what I had to do to protect this family, he said coldly. Your mother understood that. She just couldn't keep her mouth shut. Don't make the same mistake. Emily's heart pounded as he stepped closer. She could see the rage in his eyes now, raw and unfiltered. She backed up until her shoulder hit the wall. If you take another step, I swear I'll scream, she warned. Thomas smirked. There's no one out here to hear you. He lunged forward, but Emily darted sideways at the last second, using his momentum against him. He stumbled, crashing into a pile of rusted barrels, giving her a precious few seconds to run. She bolted toward the main road, the box clutched against her chest. But she knew Thomas wasn't far behind. She could hear his boots pounding on the pavement, feel his shadow closing in. Her only hope was to make it to someone, anyone, before he reached her. Emily burst out onto the main road, her lungs burning, the box still clutched to her chest. She waved frantically at the oncoming traffic, praying someone would stop. A sedan slowed, the driver rolling down the window in confusion. Please, Emily gasped. Take me to the police station. Now. The driver, a woman in her 40s, looked startled but unlocked the door. Emily scrambled inside just as Thomas emerged from the shadows behind her, his face twisted with fury. Go. Emily shouted. The driver hit the gas, tires screeching as Thomas lunged at the car. He slapped his hand against the rear window, but it was too late. They were already speeding away. Emily collapsed against the seat, shaking. Are you okay? The driver asked, glancing at her in the mirror. Emily could barely form the words. No, she whispered, but I will be. If we can just get there in time. She held the box tighter, as though it was the only thing keeping her alive. They reached the police station in less than 10 minutes, but it felt like hours. Emily stumbled inside and slammed the box on the front desk. I have evidence, she told the stunned officer, about a murder. You need to see this right now. The officer opened the box and his expression changed instantly. Get the detective, he ordered another officer. Emily backed into a chair, heart still racing, tears stinging her eyes. She had made it. She was safe. For now. Just as she began to breathe again, she saw Thomas's truck pull into the station's parking lot. He walked in calmly, as if nothing had happened. My daughter's confused, he told the officers smoothly. She's grieving. She's making up stories. But this time, Emily had the truth on her side. She stood, meeting his gaze head-on. I'm not confused, she said, her voice steady. And I'm not afraid of you anymore. It's over, Dad. The officers ushered Thomas into a separate room. But Emily could hear his voice through the walls, calm, manipulative, the same tone he had probably used his entire life to avoid suspicion. But this time, it wouldn't work. Detectives reviewed the letters, the photographs, the notebook, and the newspaper clippings. One officer returned pale-faced, holding a document Emily hadn't even seen, a signed statement from her mother confessing her fear of Thomas. If he ever learned the truth about Robert Hayes, it was enough. Thomas was arrested that night. As they let him out in handcuffs, he turned to Emily, his eyes cold. "You think you've won," he said quietly, "but you'll regret this." She didn't flinch. For the first time, he no longer had power over her. The police reopened the case of Robert Hayes' disappearance. Within weeks, a search of Thomas's property uncovered human remains buried in a remote corner of the land. DNA confirmed what Emily already knew. She had found her biological father at last. Nathan and Hannah were devastated by the truth, but they stood by Emily. "Mom wanted you to find that box," Hannah said one night. "She wanted all of us free of him." "You did what she couldn't." Emily nodded, tears in her eyes. She buried her mother and Robert Hayes together, side by side. Standing at the gravesite, she felt a strange peace. The secrets that had haunted her family for decades were finally out in the open. The weight she'd carried for weeks began to lift. Months later, Emily moved out of her childhood town. She didn't need the old house or its ghosts anymore. She had a new life to build, one that wasn't defined by lies or fear. And she carried with her one final thought from her mother's notebook. "Emily will know what to do." Looking out at the horizon. Emily whispered, "I did, Mom, I did." And for the first time since opening that box, she finally felt free.